Welcome to your March 9th, 2026 Rotary Club of Ames meeting. Let's begin with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a few to keep in our thoughts and prayers. I just want to start with the discovery of the 7th service member from the Army Reserve Unit out of Iowa who was killed in action. And then also a Rotarian for 34 years, Phyllis Krause, passed away March 4th. Services will be tomorrow, March 10th, starting at 11 a.m. at the Garden Funeral. Gathering at 11 and the services are at 1. So let's keep Phyllis's family in our hearts and prayers as well. So let's take a moment. Thank you, everyone. Go ahead and be seated. We've got several guests to sing for today, so I'm going to start off with Park. If you want to go ahead and introduce the guests you have with you today.
Yes, I do. And is this working okay? Okay. My guests originally came from a long ways to Iowa. Can you hear me okay? Hello? My name is Park Woodall, and my guests came originally. They're from Ghana, Africa, and I met James through Rotary events and ISU events. And Doreen, his wife, and he were just married in 2025. And Doreen just moved to Ames this February, like this winter, cold, and so forth. So James was a Rotaract member in Ghana, and he has completed his master's work at Iowa State and now is on his doctorate program to wrap up in December in mechanical engineering. So welcome them.
Next, I'd like Park to hand the microphone to some of our Rotaract students that are here. Go ahead and introduce yourselves. Thank you for joining. Just go briefly introduce yourself. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name's Arope. I'm a senior over at Iowa State. I'm majoring in biology. I'm from Urbandale, Iowa. That's my hometown. So, yeah, this is my second meeting, second time being here. So, thank you guys for having me.
And Arope is president of this year's Rotaract.
I am.
President. Thanks for joining us, President.
Of course. Thank you.
Sorry, I was still eating. My name is Justin. I'm the treasurer of our Rotary Club at ISU. I'm a junior, biology, also going into dentistry. Going to be applying in June, hopefully. I'm from Huntington Beach, California. And this year currently we're working with the Red Cross. We just got a blood drive going on at ISU. So if anyone wants to donate blood, you are more than welcome to just walk in. It's a great event. Tomorrow and Wednesday, we're going to be giving out cookies from the church. So if you donate blood, you get a solid cookie. You know, it's a good trade. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Kang. I am the risk manager of the Rotaract Club, so I do everything these two don't want to do. Also biology, junior, and pre-dental as well.
You can just set it there on that table. Thank you for coming today. We do have some baked goods. It looks like we've got several back here in the cart that will be helping with your event tomorrow and Wednesday. And good luck with all of the folks coming to give their blood donation. And Selden has a guest as well.
Yeah, Selden Spencer, my wife Jean Spencer, is here. Yay.
Perfect. Let's go ahead and sing our welcome song. Thank you, Louis. Next, we have some birthdays for February and for March. So we did get a little bit of some feedback, and we take feedback here all the time, so don't feel free like you can't give us feedback. Some folks didn't really like the birthday and anniversary song I created, so we're going to go back to the old-fashioned way. We're just going to do birthday. Trust me, I know there's no anniversary song, but it was fun for a little while it lasted. We're nothing if not amendable. So we do have February birthdays. Sorry we didn't catch that last month, and we will start singing happy birthday, and then we'll also show you March birthdays too. So let's do a happy birthday for everyone. Happy birthday to Rotarians. Happy birthday to you. And many more. And then we'll have the February ones up there. There we go. So happy birthday, everyone, there too. Anniversaries, since there is no song, we're just going to say happy anniversary to those in February. It looks like just Jennifer and Paul. Hopefully you had a great anniversary. You did? February 14th. Wow. Was that planned by you or Paul to just... Right? Exactly. And then March anniversaries. We've got a couple on this one, on list too. Selden brought your wife on the nice work. Well, the month anyway, right? So happy anniversary to everyone there. Kathy and Steve are here, I know. Yeah, so. And now our Rotary anniversaries for March. Actually, we'll start with February. Don, 67 years. Where's Don? Please stand, Don. I know you're here. Don, please stand, would you? That's okay. 67 years certainly shines on that. There's a lot of folks. I know Ron's here. Thank you, everyone, for your service. And then March, we also have a big number in March as well. I saw earlier, Rini Friedrich, 66 years. Roger's here, I know. So thank you, everyone, on that list as well for all your years of service. The Plex has got new AV, just everyone, so you know, some major upgrades. I'm working through it myself right now. Next, we have off-site meetings. So back over on the table, we still have sign-up sheets for next week, next Monday. The off-site meetings will be at First National Bank, United Way of Story County, Child Serve, Green Hills Community, and Ames Public Library. So several spots still available. You can bring your own lunch or check out who's actually providing lunch on the list. But please sign up and back. It's a good time, good way to get to know your fellow Rotarian and those businesses as well. So next we've got on the 30th, then we'll be back here at the Plex. We'll have our district governor-elect, Bill Bruce, will be joining us and talking about the 2027 conference that'll be here in Ames. We did decide on a venue here recently. It'll be at the Gateway Hotel for his year of service conference. Looking forward to that. It will be the last weekend in April, first weekend in May. I can't remember the exact date. I think it's the 30th, 29th, 30th, something like that, at the Gateway Hotel. And then Glenn Ripke will also be sharing the Tanzania most impactful project coming up in that. So look forward to that for on the 30th. So actually there's one in between there too. So there'll be an online one. Maybe I missed it. But 16th, is that right? 23rd will be an online one too, and then we'll have the 30th in person, and then the 6th back in person, and then the 15th online. So that's what's coming up. Next on our list. Oh, well, let's just go to the Rotary one, and we're going to move right into Oh, is Iver here? Iver's here. Awesome. I'm going to actually ask Seldom to come up to introduce you.
Well, good afternoon. It's my pleasure and honor to introduce Iver Anderson for the presentation today, but I think you need to get a little personal vibe about who Iver is. Iver and I have known each other for over 30 years through our church, and my only joke will be that Iver often served as one of the wise men during the Christmas pageants. And I think he has fulfilled that role. Iver comes from northern Michigan. And Iver, you'll correct me on everything I screw up here, but Houghton, Michigan, and went on to Wisconsin to get his degree in metallurgy. He came to the Ames lab in 1987 and has been there since. And he has published 225 papers. I looked at some of those papers, and kind of like David Hansen said about me, I have no idea what he's talking about, but it's good stuff. And the main thing, and I told Jamie this is a guy that got lead out of solder. Unbelievable. And if you have an opportunity, I think and Jamie or Allison or somebody put a website where you can check Iverson out, and I did. There's a video of him receiving an award. Oh, I'm sorry. Receiving an award as the inventor of the year or something like that. And it's just a beautiful representation of who Iver is. He's a very kind, generous man. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Iverson and give it a rip, Iverson.
I'll just correct one thing, and that's that I'm from Hancock, Michigan, which is immediately across the canal from Houghton, Michigan. So that's, anybody who has any Uper connections will understand that. Anyway, I am very pleased to be here today. Selden brought me for a peek to one of these meetings a little while ago, and I thought, yeah, this is a great group. So I really appreciate the opportunity, actually, to present on this subject, climate change, and what I think is a better term right now is climate stability, and trying to achieve climate stability is what we should be aiming for, not just accommodation of climate change. And I put on the slide, this first slide also, my primary driver is not my own feather in my own nest. It's because I'm retired now. I don't pursue proposals and federal funds. What I want to do is I want to have my 3 grandkids and one on the way grow up in the same kind of environment that I've had the good fortune to grow up in. So let me just say that the subject of climate change and what used to be called global warming, and you'll see this beautiful cover that came off of a Scientific American back in 2006, has, the subject has been around for a long time. And I'll show you, actually, there's a slide to come that much before 2006, people have been concerned about what is atmospheric pollution with greenhouse gases. And we'll get into that here. First of all, let me just set the scene. And the first, probably 1/3 of this talk is going to be what's happening now. What is the evidence for climate change? And then what can we do about it, and in a couple of slides about what I have worked on at the university and at Ames National Lab to help the situation. First of all, if you look at last year, we lived through a very warm summer, and many places on the earth were much warmer than they had been in the past. And if you've ever taken trips over to Europe, Germany almost dried up one of their big rivers there, the Rhine, and France was inundated by heat waves, and many people died actually as a result of heat waves in Europe. So this is not a new subject here, but the observations are brand new. Last year and 2 years before that, those 3 years were the hottest years in recorded history, okay? And the other thing that was announced towards the end of the year was that the United Nations declared that from the collection of global measurements that the average surface temperature of the Earth had reached 1.5 degrees C above the 1880 levels, which is considered to be the start of the Industrial Revolution. So we're already there at the goal that the Paris Accord had set for 2030. So this whole thing is starting to advance much faster than even most extreme models had predicted. So there's a couple of other, what happens when the Earth gets warmer? What happens to what we can recognize as weather? I guess that's one of the things that's important here. Is that, yeah, there we go, okay. First of all, there has been some pushback from about maybe 3% or less of the scientific community that looks at climate change. Well, this is just a consequence. What we're experiencing as weather changes are a consequence of solar flares. That's one of the things that happens. And here you can see a slide. This is the trend right here in CO2 concentration, and this lack of trend here, that's solar flares. And I think anybody who interprets data could see that there's a definite upward trend in the CO2 and a very tenuous kind of noise basically coming from solar flares. Let's see if I can, whoops. Yeah, there we go. So if you overlay greenhouse gas concentrations, methane, CO2, and nitrous oxide on the same plot, they're all going up. And especially CO2 and methane are both products of combustion or the extraction of oil from the ground. So this is, the trend is very clear, and the slope of the trend is extremely troublesome. Here's another plot that is actually talks about temperature. And this is the famous hockey stick plot, because if you've ever played hockey, you know that's the blade. And that temperature trend is incredibly sharp and very disturbing, and especially because we're off the end of that. And if you look at right here, that we are now at 1.5 degrees C, as I said in the previous slide. So 500 ppm right now is considered to be catastrophic for CO2 concentration. And that, they were predicting to reach that by 2050 if we don't do anything. So where are we right now? Mauna Loa, there's a peak on the Big Island of Hawaii. That's where there's a scientist who started monitoring CO2 at that peak because it has really good atmospheric conditions, and it's basically sort of the top of the Big Island. And there, since 1958, scientist named Keeler has been measuring very carefully in a very continuous way. And you'll notice there's like a Z to the curve. It's kind of up and down, up and down. That actually captures the fact that the CO2 concentration is highest in the winter when there aren't any crops growing in the northern hemisphere, and it goes down in the summer when photosynthesis is going on and CO2 is being taken up by the crops. So that ppb has been captured here, and right now we are at, as of last week, I think, at 429 ppm CO2 in the atmosphere. So bear that in mind here. Now, what is the greenhouse effect? The greenhouse effect is illustrated in this beautiful shot from Scientific American. See that upper skin on the atmosphere? That's what we're talking about in terms of greenhouse gases. And if that blanket gets thicker, then there is more of the sunlight that reaches the Earth from the sun that is trapped and bounces back in to warm up the planet. That's the very simple concept that was coming up, and it was named the greenhouse effect by Alexander Graham Bell a while back. So this is not new science. This is not junk science. This is science that has been around for a long time and is very well established. What happens as a result of the greenhouse effect? The Earth basically can dry out in places. The storms can become more violent. The flooding events can become more frequent. And actually, the Gulf Coast of Florida has experienced several very catastrophic hurricanes, and Hurricane Ian is one I captured here, but there have been some very similar ones that have even done more damage, especially like Asheville, North Carolina. That's not near the coast, but they got a tremendous amount of moisture dumped on them and basically inundated the river basins there. So this is extremely serious consequences. I mean, even Oregon in the Northwest, where there's a tremendous amount of rain typically, was having drought. And when they had drought, all the trees, the beautiful trees in Oregon started burning. And wildfires there were very serious. And we experienced the red sunsets and even the air quality diminish here as a result of those. So it's not to be messed with. Now, what about sea level rise? This is an issue right here that especially hits countries where their population is focused right on the seacoast. There's an example here from Thailand, and here's an example of flooding from rain events here in Pakistan. So especially developing countries are hit really hard from this, and the only thing they can do in places like Bangladesh is they just all exit the seafront and they go up into the mountains as far as they can go. And we're talking about some really serious consequences for much of the population. And so that's for developing countries. What about us? What about Florida, just for example? And a barrier island, Mar-a-Lago, right there across the bridge from Miami. That's a prediction in the next 30 years, most of the year, Mar-a-Lago will be flooded. Interesting. Okay, so let's talk about some solutions and what we can do about these problems. And here's a sort of a classic pie wedge figure that shows that transportation and energy production are two very large wedges here. I'm not going to talk about transportation at this point, only to say that Selden has an battery electric vehicle. That's a nice example to follow. And I know many of you probably are driving hybrids or battery vehicles. Good thing to do for taking that CO2 producing vehicle off of the balance sheet here. So Ames National Lab, where I had worked for 38 years, basically, we've worked on a lot of projects related to electric vehicles and actually transmission of power from renewable energy sources, things like that. And I'll give you just a snapshot of some of that stuff. First of all, let's look at the energy wedge there, that almost 30% basically. And these are the four big bars that you see up high there with the amount of CO2 that's generated. Many of them are related to combustion, basically. So the combustion process, generally speaking, is producing CO2. Now, and anybody who studies this, and I think probably mechanical engineers look at this a lot, is that ideal combustion produces CO2 as well as water vapor. And this is a key fact, chemistry that you learn. And the more we can get away from combustion in terms of being able to generate electricity, the better off we are. So I've circled the techniques here on the x-axis. Whoops. Solar, photovoltaic, biomass, nuclear power, hydroelectric, and wind. And these are all options, and including now, this plot should say geothermal also, where there are acceptable areas for geothermal energy. So this slide right here is brand new, and I wanted to get the latest data out there to you. But right now, Iowa has one coal-fired power plant on the western edge of the state, and they have been trying to retire that. And one of the approaches they have to retiring that is replacing it actually with the Duane Arnold nuclear power plant. I think it's Cedar Rapids, but the output from that power plant has to be made up in some way by a base load power source, one that always will be functioning whenever you need the power. So here's just that red the red font right there is a very important issue to remember. Economically, it's better to produce renewable energy by solar or wind. It's twice as cheap. So if you keep that coal-fired plant out there in the west, you're spending twice as much money for your electricity as you would from solar or wind. Don't do it. And there are many power plants around the country that are trying to get rid of their coal-fired utilities and replace them as much as possible with renewables or with nuclear. And there are places that are blessed to have hydroelectric, and that's the advantage that the Pacific Northwest has. And other places like Tennessee Valley Authority, that whole southeast region of the country also has hydroelectric. Super clean, low maintenance, really good. But in the middle here, we've got to harness the renewables, and that's one of the things. But one other thing about this plot right here, I want you to look at the solar trend in terms of dollars per megawatt hour. In 2009, it was way up here in the 300s, the high 300s. The research that has been done in national laboratories and by adopting industries has brought that cost down to on the neighborhood of 60 cents per megawatt hour. That's what research will do for you, and that's what industry can do if they're given the opportunity and the driving force to make that happen. So wind also, well, we'll talk about that in a second here. But solar is a really almost matched option basically with wind turbines. I'll talk about solar. We've done solar research here at the lab, and there is actually an amorphous silicon producer here in Ames who's gone big time because they're supplying the U.S. Army with flexible solar panels, these amorphous silicon panels. And the people who founded that actually spun out from Ames Lab. So interesting fact there for you. But all this work on polycrystalline silicon and amorphous silicon has brought the price way down. The panels that you see, single crystal silicon, some of them have aligned polycrystalline silicon wafers, but tremendous advances in research have produced that really reduction in cost. So let's talk about wind. We are sitting in the middle of that circle right there, which is called the Saudi Arabia of wind. And we, as you know, if you comb your hair in the morning when you step out of the of your house, it won't be combed when you get there to your car. But harnessing that wind is what Iowa has really focused on. And I think Mid-American and now Alliant has really adopted I don't have that, I have a pie chart that shows those two utilities and how much wind capacity they have right now. Actually, Mid-American is over 50%. I think it's 60, 65%. And the state of Iowa now, per capita, has more wind-generated power than any other state in the union. Texas is the only one that has more on a gross scale. So, and you'll see that that's the bottom part. There's a lot of wind in West Texas. So it's a resource ready to be tapped. The other thing I wanted to point out was the coastlines, the east and west coastlines. You see how much wind is there? And if you've ever spent any time on those shores, you know that the wind switches direction from day to night, and that switch in direction is no decrease in the wind velocity. It's just that the wind turbine has to flip the other way. So those coastlines are really ripe for being for wind energy to be harvested. And you'll see those circles that go along the East Coast, especially the East Coast, is going after the wind there. And that's primarily because the ocean bottom is not as deep sharply. You can actually anchor successfully these wind turbines. Now, at some point in 2025, work was stopped on those wind turbines that had been ongoing, and now a federal judge has ruled that they can start back up again. So that set of wind turbines now, it looks like, will be built. So that's a very positive move. Here's a thing that I wanted to bring to your attention. You know, you often hear politicians say, well, let's go to 100% renewable energy. Why not? Won't work. I'm sorry. That's a nice goal, and it's a nice thing to say if anyone has just a little bit of knowledge about it. But what's interesting to follow, and this is a example from California here, where they've done some very extensive measurements, is that wind and solar are slightly displaced. And what I mean is that there's a dip in wind in the second half of August and the dog days of summer, and there's not enough of a peak in the solar radiation reaching the Earth at that time. So there's a 2-week period there where you would really notice it if you didn't have a base load of electric supply. So that's a key thing to remember. And one of the ways to counteract that is to actually have more transmission capacity, so you can distribute as conveniently as possible the electric power. In other words, it's not working. There's anyone who likes Young Frankenstein recognizes this. Marty Feldman, one of my heroes. Yeah, what happens when you turn that power switch on and it's dark and the wind is calm? That's why, actually, transmission has to be the answer. And this is a plot here of the U.S., the continental U.S., with a proposal for direct current links across the country. These 3 links that cross the Rocky Mountains are a way to distribute power from the Midwest here to the West Coast, especially, you know, and I said East Coast is building up on their ocean mounted wind turbines, but the West Coast, the hydroelectric power up in the Northwest actually has right now a DC link that goes down south, but there is much more need as electric power consumption becomes greater. And the electric power consumption is on the order of, it has to be doubled or 2.5 times right now to accommodate our lifestyles and the increased use of electricity for manufacturing, for example, as well as for transportation. So we need more power. And we can generate more power with renewables, and we can transmit that power 10% more efficiently with direct current links. So it's that thought that we were carrying with us when we developed a composite conductor strand that can be wound into cables and allows it to be used for direct current transmission. Over 100 miles, it's cheaper by 10% to, let me just say, lower energy loss by 10% to use direct current, high voltage direct current. So this is a thing that, we got a patent on this in 2014, and we've been working on it diligently. Right now, we have a demonstration project that we are finishing, and Mid-American is our partner on this. They're going to be stringing some of our cable in Adel here, and looking at the installation issues, and also doing environmental testing at the same time. So just to hop quick to the nuclear power subject, that's another base load that can replace coal-fired plants without generating CO2. That's a key thing here, and especially in the dog days of summer. Just remember that. What's wrong with nuclear power? One of the things that is wrong with it is basically public impression, and sort of, is it safe? Yeah, the same stuff, the same kind of reactions, basically, that we unleashed on Japan at the end of World War II also can be used in a very beneficial way to produce electric power. So this slide shows you some generations of nuclear power reactors. Right now, we're sort of in between generation 3 and generation 4. I did want to point out that the Fukushima disaster from the tsunami that came through Japan basically was talking about a Gen 1 reactor. So a very old reactor that did not have sufficient safety circuits involved. So I could tell you more about that, but we don't have time. So what we've been working on at our lab basically is the fuel rods and basically protection, the cladding that goes on the fuel rods. That's the barrier. That's the first defense line with in this case, the water cooling bath. And what we've developed is actually a way to take a lot of the cost out of those materials. We're replacing what is a zirconium alloy. Very expensive zirconium itself. It's primarily zirconium. It's called zircaloy. That material also can react with steam, and that's what happened in the Fukushima reactor. But our partnership with North Carolina State University and Pacific Northwest Labs has really produced some great benefits, and we're going along that line right now. And there's some results that we're just going to be publishing in the next probably month. Then we go to what's in the Paris Agreement. You see that that the president had essentially pulled us out again. He pulled us out in 2016. He pulled us out again in 2025 from this agreement. It's a worldwide agreement. We now join 3 other countries, Iran, Yemen, and I forget what the other country is, but as non-signees of the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement talks about limits on CO2 production and a pathway to get to a decrease or at least a leveling off of CO2. And you see the important role that the United States plays. We are on that, the same order of magnitude here as China in terms of our impact on greenhouse gas emissions. So we really need to step up. We really need to set the example for the world. And we had for a while. But this is this leadership position for our country, having all the scientific knowledge that we do and having a lot of the developments that we have, we could lead the whole transition. And this is a very important issue to push for. And that's what I'm saying here. It's nearly my last slide. But these are policy issues that I just wanted to lay out for you in terms of what can you do. One of the most important things you can do is contact your legislators. You know, the public servants that you elected. You've got, this is such an important topic. This is not a topic that has one party or the other party actually should be pushing this topic. This is a topic for the people. And I want to emphasize that. And, you know, what I'm saying is that, you know, I want my grandkids, as I said in the beginning, to grow up in an environment where they can live and prosper, and they don't have to be worried about the next day's weather or the whole season that, well, all of a sudden the fields in Iowa are going to be either blown down by a derecho or burned up by a wildfire. That's not the kind of life that we want to live. So I thank you all.
The carbon pipelines that come through Iowa, I'm a farmland owner, not affected by that, but how does that work into the carbon subject? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes. That's an excellent question and a very relevant question for us here in this state, is that these so-called carbon pipelines, this is carbon dioxide that has been converted to a liquid so that it can flow through pipelines, and it's being collected. That's the plan, is to collect it from the ethanol plants and pressurize it basically and convert it to liquid. You know, CO2 has a liquefaction very close to room temperature, so this is a fairly easy task. And so what can flow in those pipelines is liquid CO2, and the idea is to connect as many ethanol plants as you can with this pipeline, and then to run that liquefied CO2. I believe one of the sites is in North Dakota, in a very deep mine shaft, essentially, and pour it down there and seal it in. If you seal it under pressure, it will stay liquid and be sequestered for a certain period of time. I'm not sure. But the geology has been studied a lot. And I think the reason they're picking a northern state also is so that there's not going to be a lot more temperature effects. This is the geology, I guess, is the best in that place. So, yeah, I think the corn producers here in this state should be all in favor of this, because there's a lot of CO2 that comes out of ethanol conversion. And if you can capture that, then we can keep maintaining our ethanol economy here in this state as being a major draw on the corn. And, you know, that's important. So I have mixed feelings about this, but I think it is a good idea up front.
Louis Bennett, a quick question. Is ISU involved in battery technology, and what's the status of long-term battery storage for the grid?
That's a great question. Yeah, yes, we are involved in sodium, large profile storage battery research. A colleague of mine in material science and engineering, Steve Martin, was recently on IPR being interviewed about this. He and his group have developed the interface between sodium and the cathode, and basically developing a glass that can go in to make these kind of batteries solid state, so much more reliable in terms of actually the charging process. We have work going on in that. Ames Laboratory doesn't really have much battery research, but it's the ISU side of the house that does.
Yeah, good afternoon, Glenn Ripke, and thank you for your talk. It's very informative.
You're welcome.
How have you been keeping up with replacements for uranium on the nuclear side? Because that's always a kind of a hot topic too, if that's going anywhere.
Uranium is what's going on right now in terms of what we call nuclear fuel research. I know Los Alamos is working on this, and probably Sandia, I believe. But the idea there is, and I showed you Gen 4 in terms of nuclear reactors. The idea is to go to hotter, in terms of isotopic instability, hotter fuels. So selecting the isotopes that go into the uranium fuel pellets so that they will release more energy, but release it faster. And this is called high burnup. So the faster they release it into the heat engine, basically, then the faster they also decay. So the nuclear waste that comes out can be a much lower level radiation hazard than, and also more compact than the previous. So it's really working with uranium, but working with the isotopes of uranium that will burn up faster. That's right.
One last question here in the interest of time.
Hi, Carl Byrne. Do you see a problem with recycling spent solar collectors?
Wow. Purity, silicon purity is a key issue in the solar collectors. Immediately to the back side of the silicon is a intermetallic compound that's basically not fused, but diffusion bonded to it. And so technologies that can be developed, probably acid etching, that kind of thing, that can remove those backing layers and leave the silicon to be recycled. That's work that has to be developed right now. There is a lot of silicon in the world, if you go to a beach, actually most of that sand, if it's white, quote unquote sugar sand, that's very high purity silicon. So silicon dioxide, I should say. The recycled silicon is all about essentially maintaining ppm or ppb purity levels. That's a tough problem. And recycling solar panels, most of what happens with a solar panel is the interconnections go bad. And those are solder joints, usually with higher temperature solders. But that's, how does a solar panel age is one of the questions there too, actually. So that needs to be worked on. You're right.
Perfect. Big thank you for Iver today. Thank you so much. I have a book here for you to sign. Part of Raising Readers, we'll give this to a 2-year-old. If you could go ahead and sign there when we do a check on them. So we'll give that in your honor. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. Very informative. One more round of applause for Iver. Appreciate that. With that, and in the interest of time, we'll go ahead and close for the day. So please rise and we'll recite the 4-way test with me. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you, everyone. Have a great